Hi everyone, I'm Tim Von Rieden with CGCookie.com, and in this quick tip tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to convert any of the brushes you already have into more painterly looking brushes. Because I've been working on Concept Cookie's new brush pack, and by far the #1 requested brush was a painterly brush. But unfortunately, Photoshop doesn't really simulate real-life traditional brushes as well as other softwares like Corel Painter. So if that is something that you are looking for, I would try working in that software. But there is a brush setting that you can affect, and it might still give you that real life look that you might be trying to achieve. So rather than me just tell you, why don't I go about and show you? So here in Photoshop, I have a blank canvas open, and currently I'm using the basic chalk brush. And while it's doing its best to simulate chalk the best it can, it really isn't achieving that overall look of a traditional chalk brush. But rather than trying to think, okay, what can I do to change this brush? Let's start thinking, what can I do to change the canvas? So here in our brush setting menus, currently we usually only focus on the shape dynamics and transfer. But let's go and focus on the texture option. So I'm going to go ahead and check it. And right away we have an image that appears in this box up here, and it has a whole bunch of options, just like any of the other settings that are in the brush menu. But this one we're really going to focus on. So for the texture, it's talking about the texture that's going to be laid kind of under the brush. So as I lay it on here, you can kind of see how it really does replicate like a real life canvas, and it has all those stipples and slightly irregularity to the surface itself. And that's what will give it a more realistic approach. But we can affect and change what image that is. So right now, I have a whole bunch because I've already preset this, but let's say this was empty. All you do is you choose this little gear setting, and then you choose one of these. So I could even do a new one. So let's say we wanted to do like a rock pattern. Do rock pattern, and if you say OK, it'll delete all the other ones and then only add rock pattern. But if you click append, it'll just add it to your current list, which you can see here. So let's say I choose the rock texture. Now as I go in, you should see a subtle look of a rock texture underneath. So that pattern is kind of like underneath of the brush as you work. So this is really great for those that want to have more of a traditional sense, because then if you just hover over the actual textures, it'll tell you what it is. So this is charcoal paper, and then if I move it slightly to the left, we have a hard charcoal one, pastel, watercolor, gauze, heavy weave, parchment. Like there's a whole bunch that you can go in and set, because these are just a few of the options in all of these. So let's say we'll do one that is very heavy. Something like this. So that gives me more of like a traditional canvas type feel. And let's say, okay, well that's great, but let's say I wanted to use a different brush. So then if I go to my circle brush, you can see how I lose all the settings that I just created for the texture. But now let's go back to the chalk and let's add it again. Now this time, before we choose into a different brush, let's choose the lock. Now when we lock it, that locks in the texture for any brush that you switch to. So now if I go to my circle brush again, it still retains that texture setting that we have. And that's good, because then as I use this brush, you can see how it still has that underlying canvas feel. So now no matter what brush I change to, I can get that look. Now I'm going to do the same for my eraser tool. I'm going to choose texture, and there we go. And I'm not sure which one this is, but I think I'm going to change this. So Berber. So I'm going to change my brush one to that as well, so that they are the same. Okay. So now to show you guys really quick, I'm going to paint something using one of my basic tools. I'm going to probably use, let's use a skin brush. So literally I can show you how almost any brush can replicate what you're trying to do. So I'm just going to be sketching a simple eye, and I'm going to be doing it the same way I would if I was working with traditional mediums. So here I'm laying out the bigger shapes with a chalk brush, and then I'm going in and I'm using my eraser tool like I would in a traditional sense, where I'm using it to kind of define the lighter forms of the shape and getting those lighter values. And I think it's important to keep doing traditional stuff as well, because all this time you're sketching in your sketchbook, that will eventually translate into your digital work. It's all about how you analyze and see objects and then be able to translate that. And Photoshop is just a different software. It's a different tool, and all that stuff in your head on how to interpret shape language and all that, that's still in your head. So it's just becoming kind of comfortable with the software itself. So here you can see when I started off, my brush size was much larger, and then as I go into detailing, I make my brush size smaller. And you can see how it does sort of replicate that traditional feel and sense. So I hope you guys will try out this brush setting kind of trick, and hopefully if you are wanting to do more traditional looking stuff, this will help you out. And thanks again for watching.